Hello, everyone. Let's see if I can. Achala, Tat Apab'yan.
Hachash
Shobagat.
Shugagab
Askipis
Ayam
Kushilab, Tat.
Inkinkikotik.
Usla. Hello, everyone.
Inkin.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I just we're just starting the live here today, as usual. I don't know if there are already some people here watching our live. So today I have this special guest that we just since our foundation of the channel that you can see his face in here teaching the Maya calendar. This time is not the T Rochelle, the apprentice, just going through the day by day of the TRECENA. Today you got the expert itself in here in the channel. So welcome once
Oh,
again, Tat.
I'm very happy. Well, I don't know the dynamics of the previous sessions. I will adjust as things unfold and come. Thank you, everybody, to be here, speaking, talking, explaining things, opening things from the Maya knowledge of the Highlands. And I'm very happy to share, very happy to for those who will want to understand the dynamics and what is the inner core of our Quiche tradition, the Kohopal, the tradition. I'm here to explain, talk, to add additional information, and also I'm open to any way of questions. Eduardo, once again, thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here. It's precious time for everybody. Then whatever that comes, tell me as a moderator what,
Yeah.
what is the stuff. Because for the people who knows me, they must know that I began to talk and to talk and to talk, and there's no way to stop me.
Yeah, but the good thing is that everything you talk is very interesting, so I think no one can complain about that.
Then
So
thank you, babe.
I'm very happy to have you here in the channel once again, Tat. This is our first live here in the YouTube for for everybody who's watching. So everybody, if you have questions, you can save. So you can ask direct the ajq'ij. It's not gonna be me, replying the questions this time. And so everyone, if you are just starting to watching this live right now, if you'd like to check Tat Apab'yan's page, the link is in the description. You can check his website or all his entire work. I highly recommend you to enter over there. And also, if you would like to follow the graphics to accompany us following the day by day, you can go either to my site or to Tata Paviantil website and just go and just search for the next day. You're gonna see the snake of the Trecena in the calculator, so that you can get familiar with the novels if you're just starting to follow. And and I hope you all are gonna be enjoying this live. So Tat, would you mind just to, as we are just about to finish, we are just finished the Tikin Trecena, or Shilahu Tikin, the 13 Eagle Trecena is just going down. We are just shifting the Trecena. Would you like to talk a little bit about what was the Oshlahu Tikin Trecena? Only to rewind a bit before we begin with the analysis of the Oshlahu Canil Trecena.
I mean, well, maybe what I can say is, let's say, like, in broad aspect, that Trecenas as such, because now I can see, it is always a subject of a matter of interest. But let me tell you also that, and maybe this also can be applied so of some of you who have been working or studying the Maya calendar, that there's not really accurate information on the websites. There's no, I haven't published like that much. It's what we can find and what we will say is the best approach is what you have been doing, Eduardo, and the graphics of the Maya calculator that shows based on the teachings of the elders of the highlands of Guatemala, what is the structure as something that was not affected by what I can call in a moment it was the colonial times, the other ways of speaking about the self, the being, the universe, Christianity, or the whatever that came with the Europeans in the moment. Some of the knowledge was vanished. A lot of the things has been forgotten in some places. Some of the calendars has been reconstructed to the best of the ability for people. But what I have been seeing is that usually there's an incorrect approach because sometimes people try to read the ancient glyphs or the ancient or try to see or to do continuity on the ancient knowledge based on contemporary approaches of what nature is or what the relationship with nature is. And sometimes in the reconstructions or in the ways of speaking Trecenas, in reality, we are looking at contemporary versions of something that we pretend to read. Well, this can be applied to several calendars and also, uh, let's say, I'm going to be clear, invent terms and concepts. What was the original ways or keys to talk about the Nahuals are encoded in the language, in Quiche language, in this case, in this version, I will say, of the Maya calendar. Okay, it's not always that easy to go into linguistics and to understand the meanings of words to be applied to Nahuals. But this is my point. The Quiche, de Cholpij, was not affected by influences and just by the simple exercise of analyzing through language, you can get to the real point or to the real meaning, the real concepts behind the reading of a Trecena. Yes, it looks like I'm bragging, but what in reality I'm saying is that fortunately for the efforts of the ancestors of the highlands and the Maya mountains, the knowledge was preserved intact. In here, there's not like a reconstruction, and we are not looking at the past with the eyes of the present. We are trying to do the opposite, to see what was the original formulation. Then, I know this is like an introduction. What I'm telling you is that some of the things that you have heard, in reality, they don't apply. What is in books, what some anthropologists has reported, some things that has been said is not. And by the way, talking about always like some other Maya calendars, there's a lot of misunderstanding of the real nature of the numerals, for example, that we consider nahuals, not potentializers, not tones, not anything like that. The numeral nahuals are also the numeral positions are also nahuals who hold also a way of a nature, and spirit, a consciousness, if you would want to say it like that. And if you heard something quite different, is because we're using and applying a methodic way of linguistics to understand the Nahuals based on the ancient way of understanding, not with a contemporary glass to try to understand. By the way, then I don't discard all the other efforts, but I have to be keen and precise and accurate to the one that I study, the one that I use and apply for understanding the universe, the life, consciousness. This is the cholquij of the Maya people from the highlands of Guatemala, the Quiche, those ones. we that wrote the Popol Vuh. Then, when talking about for to rewind and for to enter, then let me tell you that in the Maya ways, in the authentic ways of the Maya calendar, you don't consider the numeral position one or the Nahual one as the one that is going to give the name of the Trecena. In the highlands, what you use is the 13. That's why it's called, by the way, Oshlahu Ichnem, the series of days of the 13. The 13 is the one that presides over the Trecena. For the previous Trecena, 13 Tzikin is going to be talking about the Nahual 13 as a Nahual that accumulates and that gets the bigger portion of everything, and Tzikin that is a straightforward masculine action, direction to the front, sometimes associated with fortune, sometimes associated with the bolts of money, but in reality, Tzikin has more to do with the power of what you do already collect on Ishbalam and what you are going to do with that on Tzikin. And in that sense, yes, it's the power, it's the fortune, but you previously had to hold something. When Oshlahu Tzikin finalizes the reign or the dominion or the Ahawarem, as it is said in Maya, the next step is Hunahmak. The previous Trecena also holds or dealt with another very interesting ceremony and another very important part of the calendar, that is the Belehebats. Belehebats traditionally has been considered to be the day, 40 days after Washqibats, it comes Belehebats, Nawal Beleheb or Ahau Beleheb, Ahau Bats, the day of the creation of the woman's day, or the way in which Ubatzinik, the woman ways, the woman actions, the woman development. By finalizing this previous trecena, in which the feminine has an important part as a definition, then we jump into the present, which is Hunahmak. What begins with Hunahmak. And although it begins with Hunahmak, once again, I will repeat it. Is reign is of the Nawal or the Ahau 13 and the Ahau Anil, the seed. The seed is not just the seed, it's the potentiality to germinate. Because we do know that seeds can or cannot uh, germinate. Some seeds that are used for, let's say, colors, well, they will not have that power. A seed is not automatically a multiplication. The real meaning of anil is, yes, the seed, but also it is the potentiality, the capability, the possibility. It speaks more than the power of the seed as such as the possibilities that that power opens. Then this Trecena, in a broad way, ruled by a How 13 and a How Anil, is speaking about open opportunities, for example, to sow the seeds, to prepare the seeds. And by the way, now making a link, the seed of the woman in the previous Trecena is now what we consider Hunahmak. That it means the day of the Neali, the little kids. Also, in the previous Trecena that we have Kablahuch Ishbalam and 13 Tzikin, that entangles the feminine aggressive energy or consciousness or spirit of the Ish, the Yawar, and Ahau Oshlahuch and Ahau Tzikin, the eagle, the masculine part, they imply the newborns. The sexual act, the interaction of and then the newborns, delivered babies, the newborn, the kids, the work and action of the little ones. Then this trecena, in that sense, is the consequence of the actions of the previous one. And what I'm reading from the one, how hun, number one, and how 13, is that the seeds has arrived. The Ushutal, the new branches, the newborns, and the 13 Anil. The possibilities open for that new for everything that from then on can be done. A seed can get rotten. A seed can be useful. A seed can germinate. A seed can also germinate, but also can be later on not properly on or in the proper way to be fed or fueled or watered as seed. And the seed and 13 and how 13 and how anil can it mean also the rotten seed, the one that lose the purpose. Or it can be, yes, the biggest germination and later on the biggest multiplication. Then that's, in a sense, one of the things that is already in the position number one and in position 13, the arrival of the new seeds, the interaction between feminine and masculine, the Ishbalam and the Tzekin, the jaguar and the eagle, the woman's possibilities, capabilities, pregnancy, and the Tzekin, the conceptual ways. And now the kids, but how Oshlahuch and how Anil are like asking, and then, and that's precisely for every Trecena all the numeral positions, all the conceptualizations of the Nahuals are going to be entering into dynamics to give us clues of what is the profound meaning of the arrival of the seeds, Hunahmak, and what can it be then later on with those seeds. That's for just to begin. What is going to happen? A seed can be overfueled, overwatered, as to rot and lose or even to produce fermentation, for example, or it can grow properly to get this strong, very strong, and later on to bloom into flowers, and then later on to produce a new cycle of seeds. But it is not guaranteed. That is the key. That is the key to understand
Oh, great,
what are those dynamics.
great introduction about this Trecena. And before we start on, let me just say hi for everyone who is just sending some chat in here. By the way, everyone, just thank you all for joining us to analyze this Trecena. It's always good as we make this live and together. Hello, Edmond. Hello, Lucas. Hello, Margarita. Saludos, José, Tata José. Thank you so much for joining us. Edmond, I learned numbers of stones. Sid Mayer, hello. So continue with this Trecena analysis. I think one thing that we can highlight from this Oshlahukanil Trecena, I think the key point is going to be like how we dose stuff. As Tat Apab'yan said about the seed is only the potential of something to germinate. Just like the seed that needs the proper conditions, like the water of the proper heat, the proper soil. It all depends on like how you dose the complements so the seed can sprout in the most healthy way. So I think the key element as Ajmaq is the complementarity is going to be how we're going to be use the complement for the seed to germinate. And that if you like to follow, as we spoke a little bit about Hun Ahmak, like to add some information about Kib Naor.
We want to add something that is also something that I will want to tell the people also is that a reading of a Trecena entangles a lot of dimensions of action. It's not in this moment. It looks also. I'm using the metaphors of agriculture, like the seed and the water. And by the way, the numeral 7, the Ahau Bukub, or the Nawal Bukub, Nawal 7 in this Trecena is Ir. And there's another component of agricultural stuff that I will explain if you will want. But also, If we talk about in a broad way or in an extended conceptualization of thought, it is not necessarily, and this can be applied for any trecena, it's not necessary to think the seeds as seeds. It can also be your seed. For example, as following the previous trecena, if you cultivate something and you apply something of you, cultivate something kablahu ishbalam, and you apply that you cultivate oshlahu tzikin. If you cultivate and you apply directly, how oshlahu how tzikin, then you can produce a seed. The seed can be a knowledge. The seed can be money that you are reserving for a special something to buy. Seeds can also be understood as the stars, for example, and reading the movement of the skies can be also be understood under the this trecena and the way this trecena functions. There's even a special cluster of stars in the Maya ways, in the Maya philosophy, that are called the seeds, precisely. The Pleiade. Any trecena can be agricultural, can be astronomical, can be related to your personal development or the personal ways of your actions, thoughts, conscious and unconscious ways of directing your thoughts. But also, the Trecena can be also be read as a social, as a collective way of action. Not only an individual can be understood, an action can be understood, an action, a society can be a group, a collective, a group, a tribe of dancers. It depends on how every Trecena has a structure that you can use and that you can analyze in different ways. For example, I wrote a book about pregnancy and delivering babies and the philosophy of the Mayan ways, I can also use that for to track the seed, the semen, the ovulum, that is another seed, and the semen as the seminal liquid as a liquid, also feminine, masculine. I can also read and use this trecena for to track what is going to be the impulse, how bukuk, how to understand a pregnancy moment, but also the stars, but also my proper life. Any person that is born under this trecena, agricultural ways, metaphors of nature or the direct action of nature. Then I think that is important for to be read in this, for to be said in this transmission, because we can later on, and if anyone is interested also, that Tercenas can be read in so many different dimensions. You have not to close your eyes only to understand the seed and to picture a seed and some dirt and some water and a pot and a plant. It can also be, as I said, the sexual act, the woman and fertility, the man and the inception, the conception, the pregnancy and the delivery. That is like the flowering of the seed. It can also be the stars, and every trecena can hold like this different ways of being applied. Now, every trecena entangles any way of a possible combination of actions or dynamics in the structure to be read. My preference, obviously, because this is also the way I work, is related to fertility, pregnancy, delivering, and the development of consciousness in the baby. But also, let's say, for example, in this case, agricultural ways. Ajmaq is complementarity, and is when the complementary opposites intertwine, enter into action, combining their possibilities. That is the beginning. The new seed has to say something. But for example, if I will want to go on to analyzing the first days of rain, the upcoming rain, the behavior of ants, spiders, birds, there's this critical point in the Trecena that speaks about Ajau bukub 7 and ajau iq, the wind. What is happening in the natural ways of the earth? Well, the wind begins to shake the trees. The seeds that were already on the branches of the trees fall, and then they got dispersed to later on be by the rain coming as in Ajmaq, coming to be in inception, to begin to produce. This Trecena also holds that precisely the intense relationship between what is coming, what the wind disperses or what the wind produces, because the wind helps the seed to to later on get germinated, and the possibilities of getting rotten or getting in the proper position, in the proper growing position. Every seed is special. No, you have to look at the species, and everything needs, as you and I, we need different ways of being fueled, different ways to be understood, different ways to be raised. There's no generalities in the Mayan ways. Then this Trecena also, and I will say, is key important to understand the position of the house 7 and the house Ik, because this Trecena is also positioning something very important. If Ahau 13 and Ahau Anil speak about the power of the Trecena or the possibilities the seed has, you have to pay attention to this 7 it. And now it is, which is your impulse. What is giving you impulse? What is giving you the strength? If later on your seeds that I said, it can be as a woman your fertility. It can be positions in the stars to calculate rain. It can be even, another aspect that Anil also rules, and is not that always told, is also when you exterminate your body with substances. And when I say substances, it can be even water, because water can rotten. But for example, excessive consume of drugs or medicine or alcoholic beverage, or what also can be compulsive habits. The seed also will be based on your capabilities, also your own seed. But then, what is giving you impulse? What are you doing? And what you do, what is going to produce? Are you going to germinate your own things, your ideas, your projects, your dreams as a kid, if you hold dreams as a kid, your ideas of the moment? Would you want them to be rotten? Would you want them to be germinating to their own blooming? Then, as a matter of fact, for to analyze this Trecena, if you do have and you do put, let's say, over the table, you put your actions to be developed, your seeds to be germinated, or your actual seeds, if you will want to plant seeds, what is the impulse that you are going to be given to that? How Bukub and how in the middle of the Trecena is already telling, asking, giving the advice, or already being in the position of the 7 telling you, what is the impulse? Is there an impulse? Or are you using that impulse? Another variation could be also related with the fact of what happens during forestal fires. For example, when the fire opens and cracks the bark of a seed to finally arrive later on to be germinated. Then how Bukub and how in this Trecena is also questioning, what is that fuel? Which is the fuel you're applying? What are you going to germinate? And later on, what are you going to bloom? And as I said, the how it can also be fostering your bad habits, if you call it bad. Let's say unnecessary habits, I'm applying words that are difficult, like bad or unnecessary. Nobody can. How do you determine which is position? Maybe you can justify your habits, but are they the proper way of fueling what you later on are going to go on to conception with, or what are you going to expect? Because we are always traveling to the future. We are always looking in expectation to what is going to come. We fuel, we produce, we push. That is another way to talk about Nawal Iq, how we push, how we insist, how do we persist, how do we insist, which is that fuels. Then that can be the first examination. Uh, you can enter into the understanding of this Trecena, but also tell me, what does it fuels you? That is a question. One day I had this beautiful student with beautiful questions asking me about, for example, if there was a development of morality or ethics in the Mayan ways. And because mostly there's, I will say in a broad sense, through spirituality and religion, that mostly it's always rules. And sometimes it's just like prophets or some shamans or some religious leaders telling you what to do. But that is based on their ideas. The Maya ways of understanding, if you will call it moralities or ethics, or the way to understand a proper philosophy is based precisely into this. If you will want to build something as how do we proceed and that we apply this, or how to think this reality, well, this Trecena can help us to begin to ask us, what does it fuels you? That's the bukup. That's the question. That's the something that you have to analyze to later on, by expectations, see what is going to happen on 13 Hanil. And those not necessarily something that you are doing in this moment during the Trecena does not necessarily has to have immediate repercussions during the Trecena. Maybe something that I'm doing in this moment can be having repercussions in 9 months or in 18 months. Anyways, it applies. But then that's the first question. What does it fuels you? How do you inject strength? How do you use the power, the potentiality, and the possibilities of a seed of knowledge, a seed of understanding, your material capabilities? What if I sell this car and I get this money? And then I do this and this and this. How do you feel? What is the impulse? What is giving you impulse? Then that is it. The Maya calendar in the structure already is telling you and giving you clues that is based not in the dreams of the prophets or the religious leaders, but what and how actually the universe is functioning. And this is the first question. Yes, complementarity has arrived with the position of number one, a how hun. Complementarity is going to blend together the opposites to create and to produce something new. But for the later germination, what is fueling you? And that is the first question that all you attendants of this transmission can begin to ask to you. How do you feel your own things? How do you feel your, I said habits, but for example, how do you feel your dreams? How do you fuel your interpretation of reality? What do you use to understand? For example, and that will be Bukupik. Do you understand life through effort, or do you understand life through tantrums? Do you just cry to get like the babies? Do you just cry to get the nipples, or you do have the effort? It depends. For seeing the 13 and thinking about the 7, you can get a lot of answers. Not only for this Trecena, you can jump to another Trecena and analyze the same. If the 13 is ruling, the 7 is going to ask you, and well, this is the first question. How do you feel that you prepare as a seed to later on germinate, bloom, and give you more to multiplication? But it's not guaranteed. If you do apply tantrums, if you go on to the other side of the it, If you are only pushing just because pushing, if you abuse people, well, let's see how rotten what that you prepare is going to be. That is the first lesson or a lesson.
Yeah, great lesson. Yeah, that's why I mentioned that. I think that the key of this is the dosage, because sometimes, as Kirill also talks about this productivity, because people can just fill the house with lots of coffee and coffee and coffee, and they become crazy at the end. But that was great overall, perspective of this Trecena. I think now we can just start breaking down these small steps. And feels like I think more people entering here. So if you have any questions at the end of the analysis, I will be telling Tat Apab'yan to reply then. So Tat, so now how can you describe this build up of the Trecena now with Kib Naor, two thoughts, two knowledge, the thinker, retracting to think.
The ponder or the operational ways. Well, also another parenthesis for later on analysis and conversations. Trecenas traditionally in the highlands can be read in three different ways. We think about the time as linear time, like coming here, like for example, if I don't know, I will have an event to attend next Sunday. Well, I have some days to prepare, and that is linear time. That it's okay. That is the way the body needs to be fed, also, and the continuity of you to arrive to a certain point. As I said, we travel the future. We are not really in present time. There's no time to really rest from the flow of time. We're always traveling to the future, and the future is always expectations, no matter how you will behave. And also that entangles, and that also implies that you do have to prepare. Sometimes we over prepare for stuff based on the fact that future, anyways, is uncertain. You make your plans, yes. The better they are accomplished, well, yes, but not always is like that. Well, then, one of the ways of reading Trecenas is linear. There's another way that is called the snake or the lighting. I love both names. That is precisely, and let me give you the commercial that in Eduardo's webpage and the calculator also in my webpage, you can find the snake lighting way of reading a Trecena. You can use both schemes. You need a little skills also to understand. It's not like to be easily to be read. You need the concepts. You need the to interwave ideas and concepts. But that's another way. The linear time, the lighting snake, and there's also one that is called the occult. He, More than occult is hidden in English. The hidden one, the one that is reserved. That's another way. Then, for the purposes of this transmission, I will tell you that what Eduardo is asking is the linear way. We're going to go from 1 to 13. But there's also I will say, the hidden one and also the snake lighting. Well, then, if I will go back to my own explanation, the numbers does not necessarily, as other calendars has told us, does not necessarily goes like 1 to 13 accumulating, let's say, energy or power. No, that is a mistake. That is a way to read. When you read the seeds, when you track time, when you are in a linear position. But the numbers, the house of the numeral days, also behave in a different nature, and there's no way to say that, for example, number 3 is bigger than 1, or that 9 is more powerful than 5. No, that is completely incorrect. Forget about tones, forget about nahuals as potentializers. There's way to use that reading pattern. That is a profound mistake. Because also time, and you have heard this several times in all the places that for the Maya the time is cyclical. Then not all the time the linear reading is going to apply. And that's why I'm introducing. Later on, if you will want, we can explore another ways of reading the Trecena in the authentic ways and with the proper meanings. Okay, the announce has been done. You can go to Eduardo's web page and try to decode the stuff. But if you will want to wait, we can explore little by little. Okay, we began in Hun Ahmaq. Ahmaq. Ahmaq that also has been profoundly affected by Christianity and by the medieval European ways of action. Sometimes people talk about like, oh, westernization, but you have to think that the first influence came not from the actual contemporary Europeans or the Western ones. That is different. What we saw as an affectation in the Maya calendar or ways in which some other calendars, like for example, Central Mexicans or the lowlands of Mayan ways, was a medieval European religious ways to explain stuff. Sometimes, and this is very peculiar, Eduardo, sometimes we are more medieval than the medieval Europeans or the contemporary Europeans. Sometimes we still think with that, and sadly, in some areas of Guatemala, Chiapas, and some places like precisely these lands, Mexico, sometimes the concepts are very affected by medieval European religious thinking, and that's not good. Ahmak Mak as walking in silence is not the sinner, and the concept of sinner, and all the associated repercussions of offending God or whatever has not to be applied to Nawal Ahmak. Ahmak is a process, is entangling, is intertwining, is getting the opposites to be together. That's why they represent Nawal Ahmak will also be explaining the sexual act, and that is what it comes with the European medieval ways. They call it the sin, sinning, making love, sin, and that is stuff that I'm not going to extenuate in this moment. Is very absurd, but anyways, it's sad to hear that people that is born on Nawal Ahmak immediately they are, oh, you are born in the day of the sinner. Well, yes, for your medieval European 16th century mind, yes. For the Mayan proper ways, is the interaction between the earth and the sky, the seed and the water, the semen and the ovulum, everything that entangles or everything that represents an interaction between the opposites is going to produce something else. And that is the real meaning of Ahmak. Forget about singing, forget about blah, blah, blah. Yes, we can make mistakes and ask pardon, but that is another act. That is not the nature of something that intertwines to produce something else. And that is the beginning of un Ahmak. Now, one way, linear ways, hunahmok, intertwining, sexual act, interaction of the opposites, the repercussions that come from that, to lead to the AHAO 13 accumulation or big or great, and anil, the potentiality of the seed. What is the next Nahual telling us? Kep Naoh, how Kep as a retractional calculation ways going backwards to see, and Naoh, sensing. Sensing in that sense, this is another verb that is not that commonly used for to explain Nahual Naoh. It's in my book, buy my book. Uh, now as the sensibility. In Mayan ways, for example, differentially from what is more or less average ways of speaking. For example, in Maya, it's more easy to translate like, what do you think more than, no, what do you feel more than what do you think? If we are going to use the Nahual now, yes, as thinking, yes, as decision making, yes, as wiseness, or the opposite, Now you have to add something, sensitivity. For example, when I am with my clients, sometimes I do the exercise and I think, what do you think about this? And they answer. And now what do you feel? And people is like, I don't know what to think, or stuff like that. That's a difference. I will tell all the students or all the people that is interested, why don't you begin also to think and to ponder about that? Not only what does it fuels your seeds or your capabilities or possibilities, also why don't you start with a with an exercise of asking yourself, what do you feel instead of what do you think? Because we can rationalize life, an activity, a project, a certain way of accomplishing something. But sometimes we just use, let's say, related brain capabilities. But sometimes we will proceed against our own feelings, right? Instead of positioning first, what do you feel? We do think and we do rational decisions. Why don't we make heart based sensitivity decisions? In my own personal case, I have been shifting since some years ago to begin to ask me, what do I feel instead of what do I think? Nawal Naoh is that, or Nawal Noh is what do you think? What do you feel? What do you think? Or we can do it like that. First, what do I feel? And then what I do think. And then I can rationalize. I have been seeing that most of the problems in people is because of that, because you rationalize your life. You make brain based decisions instead of asking if you're okay, if you're happy with that. No, no, it's better to position of the Trecena. Que, how to, Nahual 2 is telling retraction, get retracted to think, to calculate. But Naoh or Noh is telling you, think about it. Why do we have to think? Because the seed either rottens or either germinates. That's the next position in just short stuff.
Oh, great. Yeah, I always think about like the whenever thinking about the kib, now it's always like the moments of retraction to see how, like how you're gonna position yourself to achieve your goal, like the
Mm-hmm.
calculation that we all need to do, especially because as Ahmaq also talks about blindness, because Ahmaq is very complex, and we would have to spend like 3 hours only to talk about
Oh,
Ahmaq in here.
no.
It's like if we are just hit by like this blindness, sometimes it's better we just take one step back to, are we really sure we want to get there? Is that really motivating us, to get there? Or just, or maybe if we are just talking about the productivity side of the Trecena, or we need to produce stuff in the canoe, maybe now could be, to think about a plan, how we can execute everything in a proper way, to use the right dosage in order, to give life to our plants, to make everything work. It was very bright everything
Also
that
to retract to see the big picture. And also, can it mean that if, for example, Oshlahu Hanil represents your idea to germinate, your seeds to germinate, your materiality to multiply, or a dream to be accomplished, you also have to rest a little bit. You
hmm
have to let it go, let it flow a little bit, recalculate, and see the full picture. Then you are going to proceed. Oship Tihash. How Oship is the opening ways of uh, defeating the obstacles. Anti-hash in this place, just one of the explanations. There are a lot of explanations also, is to cut, to prune, to use the knife to unleash. The combination of opening the ways, defeating the obstacles, but cutting what is unnecessary. Then you intertwine, you produce, you are beginning something. Then you retract, You calculate, you see the full picture, you take a little rest, and that has to give you the clue and the key. What to cut, what is unnecessary, what is not going to be helping for achieving that germination that Ahau Oshlahuch and that Ahau Hanil is telling. In this case, Oshipti hash present in the Trecena, as I said, a way of a formulation of a natural philosophy. Oshipti hash is already saying something like, in English, something like, for to defeat the obstacles, what do you need to cut? And that is the lesson of Oshipti hash. What do you need to cut? What is unnecessary? In which do you lose money? In which, or for example, you are angry with a person and you are continuously angry with that person. You are just using, and you are not getting any results. You are just getting frustrated. Cut it out. There's a
Hmm.
lot of life. There's a lot of things to come. The world does not end for this little stuff that is happening. The Noshiti Hash is already giving the clue. Cut. Sometimes it's a social cut, and sometimes it's revolutions or shifty hash. Or shifty hash is, for example, the Nahual of Napoleon and some other people, but is a cut that is strong. You have to think in which I'm losing, which is my own obstacle, which are your own obstacles to defeat them. Then you have to cut something, cut a habit, cut losing money, cut getting anger for everything, or desperated for something. Or shifty hash is
Yeah, it's the time to heal in order for us to don't get rotten, in order us to don't get intoxicated, by our own expectations, by our own plans. So it's the good cut. But also it's good, I think, to mention about the divergence part of the now sheep, because
mm,
we can also, I think, talk as the
this opening, well, but the branching capabilities of Nahual tree are associated with the hash. This is, in that sense, will be more clear if we said pruning, because
Mhm,
you are going to cut in different directions in the branchings of your plan, your ideas, your seeds, your possibilities, your capabilities. In this case,
mhm.
it's pruning,
Nice.
branching pruning, to see where do you lose all.
Yeah. But I also mentioning like how about like the communication aspects of the hash as well, because we also have like this way of, if you're about to sell the seeds, is also about how you use the communication to execute also the planning we were calculating in our or also only to fix the wounds maybe after like we will fall into a blindness in Ajmaq. Penalty hash can be the moment where you can heal yourself in order to produce more, to be motivated about the stuff you're producing. Especially because Ahmak is also telling us to let go, what doesn't need. So Tihash you need to cut. So I think for everyone watching, try to cut everything you can, until Tihash, so you can flow the electricity in a more fluid way.
Yeah, perfect. Healing something. And also, there could be an association directed to Kep Naor. Sometimes retraction and making plans can get you obsessed, and then you
Mhm.
lose the control. Oshipti hash is cutting the obsession that can be produced by Naor. Also, in a sense, it's telling you to prune, to cut, to reserve some sort of impulse, energy for that seed to be germinating. And that, yes, healing applies also. As I said, there's a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of ways of reading. But when you force an interpretation of a trecena and when you are too brain based, sometimes it's not that easy. It has to function smooth and softly. It takes time. Yes. Just you need to think in a different way. And by the way, you have to erase everything that you read on the internet, but Eduardo, or nicks, but don't follow the others. They cannot be used for to read the Maya calendar. Then Kahib Kawuk. Kawuk in this sense will, following this Trecena and in relationship with Hanil, Kawuk in this way, yes, is the lighting, yes, is that appears abruptly or just sudden in a sudden way, or in clusters is also another definition of for Kawuk. But in this case, will mean the that after you did very brain-based effort to understand and recalculate, and then you got this way, Kawuk will be meaning that you are resting from all of that, and now you have the clarity, the lighting, the saqlah, the intuition at your service. Why? Because you use your sensitivity or your brain base to calculate, to know, or shifty hash, you cut the adversity and you prune what was extenuating your energies or your bias, your time even. And Kahib Kawuk in this case is the clarity and even the serenity that comes when you do access your own intuition. When finally you didn't got the answer by the reading the manual and the stuff and then blah blah blah. And you says, well, and then you rest a little bit and you said, oh my gosh, it's very easy. I have to do this. In this case, Kawuk is going to add a sense of sensibility and intuition to the reading or to the continuity of understanding this Trecena.
Yeah, it's a stationary light that comes into this place to light, and just like after we cut, we can see everything clear, like all the overthinking process, like as Tat was talking about, if we are very brain based. So whenever we reset stuff, we're like after we cut, so we can see things clear. We can sense maybe like even without proper information to see where things are going to go. I think it's that light that we all must follow in this Trecena. And
Well, it's also the foundation of clarity, the foundation of intuitivity. Then there can be also the using the brain, not data-based information in your brain or in your senses. It also could be functioning as in the deep spiritual ways. In this case, is beyond what do you feel or what do you think. In this case, is the sheer intuition, and also kahib kawu can also mean creativity because you know that defining creativity and no less to define genius ways of acting is there's no answers. Then we enter into that place of deep intuition and the foundation of clarity. Yes, it helps. Sometimes you resolve the stuff more than by intuition that by but why you were told. But it depends, right?
yeah,
It comes from person to person.
true. And then from Kahib Kawuk, we're gonna go to Hob Hunahpu, the
Ooh.
overflow of brightness, like the rough glory, like the rough battle. Yeah.
Hmm. Already also mentioned.
Yeah.
Well, Kahib the self or waiting for a thing that has no more. You can hold interesting agricultural cues. I would as such tracts. journal.
I think we are just having Tat. I think your internet froze. Did it froze for everyone in there, or just for me? Because I don't know if it was my internet or if it was Tat Apab'yan internet. If anyone can, yeah, yeah. Now you're back, Tat. Yeah. Mhm. I think we just had a technical issue in here. Just waiting for Tat to go back. But before, while he doesn't come back, let me just say hi here to Evelyn, because I haven't spoke to you. Thank you for joining the live. Just waiting for that to go back. And if you have questions, feel free, because after we finish this flow of the analysis of the TRECENA, we can all, reply all your questions. I think he's back here. Yeah, now you're back.
Now
So
I'm back.
yeah.
Espalda. I'm back. That's this is a personal joke between Eduardo and I that in some of the automatic translations in YouTube and in some places, specifically the Spaniards and stuff like that. Sometimes when you see subtitles of "I'm back," it says "Soy espalda." Okay, soy espalda. Then five hunahpu is going to five hunahpu. A how five. A how hope. Nahual hope is stronger. Even is one of the strongest, and that's why I was saying don't go linear. That's a mistake. Then um, five Hunahpu is the water one in this Trecena. And by the way, as I said, Hunahpu can also explain the seed. And by the way, can also explain the seed and the rotten seed and the fermented seed. Because five Hunahpu in the other ways of reading and in classification and positions of all the Nahuals is precisely five Hunahpu is the Nahual, as in central Mexico also, is the Nahual of drugs. Hallucinological entheogens is the Nahual of flowers, yes, but also the poisoning flowers and also the dreaming flowers. This is more, I'm opening this more like in a cultural ways. In central Mexico is more clear with Xochipilli and the numen of poetry and the let's say the ecstatic religious experience or spiritual experience, ecstasy also. In this case, applied to the Mayan ways is not necessarily talking about, let's say, the lethal flower or the poisoning flower or the drugs. Not necessarily, it can be, but for example, if you will want to apply all this scheme, you can say that maybe you need to get this little pot to go through your plants. It can adjust. Why not? Maybe you're too nervous and you need a little boosting, or
Mhm.
you get a little drink and then you jump, or just an aspirin and go through this. Listen, this Nahual, this position in these ways of acting can also imply the use of substances. But, well, I'm not going to think because it can have no end. But 5 and 13 has a relationship. Shh, don't say nothing. Number 5 and number 13 are always associated. They have an strict, very close relationship that I'm not going to explain this moment. Later on in another class or another way or another transmission, another podcast or whatever. But 5 and 13 always have a very strong connection. And if the seed or a how 13 and a how anil explains the biggest of the seed or capabilities of the seed, 500 is already the cycle of the seed or the warring ways to arrive to light again. But also, due to this relationship, and that's what I'm saying, if you overabuse drugs or stimulants, then the seed is going to get rotten. I have no time to explain this secret relationship between 5 and 13, but for example, if you do have, for the TRECENA that you belong, analyze yourself based onto that. What is your 5 and what is your 13, and see how they got related to get you and to put you into action, and what do you do about that. That is always something that has more power than 10 years in the couch of the psychiatrist, or 3 years studying Arwell's stupid calendar, or whatever. Analyze the 5 in your TRECENA and the 13 in your TRECENA, and if you are 5, analyze the 13, and if you are 13, analyze the 5, or in any position, analyze that relationship, and it's always a key to understand how do you proceed in life and what you get from life. Once again, what do you proceed? How do you aggressively proceed with things when you push all the energy? And what do you get from that? I'm not going to explain everything, but with this is enough. 5 and 13 has always a relationship in your Trecena, and it's going to explain a lot of about you. How do you proceed in life when you go aggressive into something? When you go like, yes, I will do it. Let me get this drink or this substance, or no, just to go through the battle. And the 13 is going to explain. Then, one first very easy to associate idea about this is that if you overdose in 5 hunakpu, then for sure the 13 hanil is going to get rotten. But also, you can fight, you can go, you can moderate, or you can use it, blah, blah, blah. This is common to all the cultures for shamanic practices, for dancing, that you sometimes you do use this little substance. And that is Hunahpu. And in central Mexico, it was more than clear. Just go and analyze Xochipilli sculptures, Amaquilxochitl, the numen that reigns over dance and stimulation. But once again, 5 and 13 in their relationship they hold. If you overdose, you are going to get the seed rotten. But if you fight hard to get into light, no matter how you do it, you can combine blah, 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 you can expect better results from the 13 for the seed to germinate.
Mhm.
That's the thing. Later on, I can explain that secret relationship.
Yeah, that's great. I think you already spoiled too much. Otherwise, like people are gonna be spamming your DMs, to come back here and just teach everything.
Well,
Eh,
now that I'm thinking about these the contemporary ideas about the universe, and the hologram and stuff. Sometimes the calendar is also giving you that because there's a lot of things, and one brand, one single branch leads you to another, to another, to another, to another, to another. There's no end. There's no, and there's people that sometimes says, "Why don't you write about this?" And I said, "Oh,
They already know.
there's a, I already mentioned three ways of reading the Trecena, and now I'm talking about the relationship between the 5 and the 13 and woo, pruning and stuff. Well, that's 5 Hunahpu. You can be assisted by a substance or not.
Yeah,
But
of course.
how to fuel
That's
a
why I
coke?
always, yeah, it's how I always say that sometimes hot days can go sideways. Be aware of the now five of the power. Can be also a day where I can give like 150% of everything, so everything can just flow and flow with it. Be aware of something that cannot be contained, like the how hob. Especially because I think in this one, like this potentiality of this trecena of germination, multiplication. Whenever we see hob hunahu, like is the attraction with no containment, like it's a rough attraction, it's the desperation to attract. That's why this desperation can also put us into substances to handle of the anxiety, because Hunahpu talks about the battle of the seeds that goes to the darkness of the underground to rise up as a flower, to attract and to produce all other seeds. So I think this hop Hunahpu is the great thing, like how you can make the package to sell the seeds, like how you're going to use to attract, but can also be an illusion that you can be entering. So one aspect of the Hunahpu that I think is important to highlight is this aspect of the false glow. What can I be? Exactly what you're seeing. So sometimes we can
Ah,
just,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, I was thinking just maybe beyond the Trecena, just your average day, and then you would want to achieve something during the day. 5 Hunakpu can explain your coke, your pot, your food, or the vitamins or your minerals that you got. It is also explaining what you also use to boost. Because it's breaking the containment. It's breaking what is there. Mr. Apab'yan, do you watch the star, the moon, and the planets Venus sometimes every day? Oh my gosh, there I lose the. Mr. Apab'yan is Seth Mayer asking, do you watch the stars, the moon, and the planet Venus sometimes every day? What do you think of? What is saying? What do you think of?
of the moon and its role. Thank you for the live, for
What,
both of you.
this is a question differentially. I'm just going to tell you that another thing. There's also a chol'ik, not only a chol'ij. The chol'ij that we know is based on 260 days. The rules are applied by trecenas, 13 days and roads. There's also the Masewalqij, that is the solar year of the 365 plus 1/4, blah, 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 with or without adjustments. That's the Masewalqij. But there's another secret calendar that is called the Chol'ik. Ik means the moon. We follow the Chol'ik also. I am an ajq'ij that follows the ajq'ij, that is the ajq'ij Chol'ik, that it means the count of Venus. I follow the Chol'ik, which is the Chol'ik, and there's also the Chol'ik, the moon calendar that is based on certain numbers. I'm not going to mention. Then, this is about the Trecena, not about the moon, but I can tell you as a secret, there's also the Cholik, and it has its proper rules and it has a lot of functions, especially to understand the energy and the possibility of fluids, watery like, or including even lava, everything that has fluidity, and how the moon is used to track that things that grow are also examined by the cholic, even the hair, the seed, the injection of water, and a lot of stuff. But if you will want later on, there could be a transmission about that. But in this case, we have to continue with the TRECENA. But there's a cholik,
Mm.
the count of the moon.
Great. And I think talking about water, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more after the analysis. But thank you for the question, said Mayor. And talking about water, we're just gonna be moving to Wakibi Mosh.
Wakibimosh.
Gosh, the heart.
Wakibimosh. Mosh was also an owl that has been affected by medieval European influence. Imosh explains the power and the capabilities of water, not only necessarily the fluidity or the incapability to hold it, for example, in your hand, but also the injection of strength. We are made of water. Water is needed for a lot of stuff. Water is now being more precious than ever. And water, and look how agricultural we can use metaphors for this trecena, because the seed will need water. And if not the seed, at least the dirt. And there are different quantities that you have to apply to the seed, and not only just to let the seed over there. And that is another lesson of the full trecena, because if the trecena is ruled by Camille and the bakoj and the seed, ha, also another way of speaking about the seed. Um, the seed, in a sense, is not active. It depends on the actions given to the seed. Only in nature, when the wind comes and disperse the seeds, then they proceed naturally. But anyways, the seed needs the wind. The seeds later on needs the water. And by the way, needs the proper amount of water, not just like I did when I began 20 years ago my cacti garden, that I was applying the same water to everybody. And yes, of course, some of them were overfilled. Some of them resisted and some succulents adapted, but I killed by that. I'm so sorry about that, but I got the lesson that not everything needs the same fuel or the same quantity. And then in the Trecena, Wakip Emosh is going to do that. Wakip is pondering in this case, and Emosh is water, not craziness. When you apply the term craziness to the Maya calendar to explain Awal Emosh, then you are European Spanish medieval person. Don't do it. Emotion is water. And yes, water can get you crazy, but also everything can get you crazy. Lacking money. Not just the water. Don't blame the water for your craziness. Craziness, yes, an injection of a bad proportion of the injection of water can lead you to craziness. But as I said, don't apply medieval European terms. Emotion is the water, has to be applied in the proper proportion, and then something is going to grow properly and correct until producing a flower. And it's a flower. With the flower descent, the mechanics of reproduction by bees, butterflies, whatever, bats, even ants. Uh, and then you got the new seeds after the fruit. But it has to be on proportion. Then, what is the lesson, or what is this Trecena saying about Wakibi Mosh? Is telling you ponder the quantity of water. But if you don't want to apply water, ponder what is the proper quantity that you have to inject. Either you grow that, either you produce the explosion of the germination to sprout, either you drown to rotten the seed and to dilute those powers or capabilities. Wakibi Mosh in this case It's not the heart of craziness. It is not the no. Forget about. Don't go medieval European. Six emosh, wakip emosh. Now, how wakip, how emosh is ponder the quantity. What are you going to inject for that seed to get germinated? Just easy.
Yeah, it's where lies the dramas of the Trecena. Because I think, well, what I can point out without mention craziness, because emoji is kind of a hard, it's a hard now to negotiate. It's kind of hard to hold. So it's so that's why I think like that like that could be like maybe the challenge, the distress center. Like how are we gonna be dosing that amount of water? It's the same thing. You have to carry like a huge bucket of water that you need a lot of precision, but then you're doing that like with your opposite hand. So of course, you're gonna lose a little bit of water here and there. So I think that's is a good example of emosh. Carrying something very powerful but with very low, very little precision. That's why you need to be, a little bit careful with now emosh. Because otherwise, you can rot on all everything that could be your like the harvesting of your life, like your business if you're not careful, like you don't know how to do very well. How do you going to be injecting force for that to go up, to gain life? And
Yeah. And as I said, let's go beyond a little bit that and go now to
yeah, go ahead.
the for example, if you inject money as a liquid money, is even the term even exists. Liquid money, like when you are applying, you have to ponder. That is the lesson of the Wakipimoshi disposition in the Trecena. Ponder how and go and what are you going to inject. Because of as the seed is not only the seed of something. You can the proper stuff and get it. That is really what is Wakipimoshi.
Yeah,
And it's not a dragon or anything like that.
yeah. And now moving to Ukub Yek. You already, I think, you spoke a lot about the repercussions and the importance of the wind here as well. Like we can see, like this climax of the Trecena, like the how the wind is going to be spreading the seeds, to be able to have like this multiplication of everything that you are doing, your personal projects, your plantation and everything. But also, as Tat Apab'yan Tew mentioned in the beginning, this can be the tantrum. The tantrum that you can get, like sometimes, like if you cannot handle emotion, you can throw the temper tantrum and maybe destroy everything that's out of the angriness. Because Yek is a very explosive novel. If emotion is kind of hard to deal with, Yek is not too far away ahead from emotion.
Yeah, and in agricultural ways, then you have this body of water, then the wind that disperses the seeds and wash then it's going to be in this case adjusting to the full meaning of everything is the dawn of the things that are going to grow. It is also not only the Akabalas are complaining or demanding, but also everything. And now we have to jump to the other side. Now we have to think as seeds. A seed does not only needs water, or maybe some of them, but also talking in the broad way, it needs fertility. It needs whatever, right? Then in this was Qiba Kabal is speaking about the demands or what that you bought or hold as a seed is going to. What Shaqib Kabal is the returning of that psychic by the stimuli of anything is just an structure. goes beyond casuality, and then it was then in that sense is more on the side of we have been speaking about the atmosphere of the seed, but now we can talk about the seed as such. The seed is going to demand. The seed needs specifics. The seed has follow into a waterly fertile dirt or land, but the seed demands. We, for example, I don't know, and that is sometimes the peculiarity of people who talks about the Maya calendar without having agricultural stuff or reading the stars, or as this person asked about the moon. You can do a lot of intellectual stuff, but when you do really produce your food, you really understand everything. And I'm not talking only about greenhouses or my garden of cactus. I'm thinking about really when you do need to get that grow up, because you are going to need that food later on, is when you really learn what is nature and what is the universe and what does the moon means and stuff like that, because the moon is going to help into that. For example, when to prune a plant, we use the cholik and the cycles of moon, even for health. Then Washaqib Ahmak is positioning yourself in the seed. The seed is going to demand, is going to ask specifics. Not all the dirts are the same for the same, as long, as much as the water is different for every seed, also what is prepared in that pot or in that land is going to tell you. The seed also has demands. That is the position of Washaqib Ahmak in this case. What do you need to prepare and what does the seed really needs? Maybe needs you, maybe natural cycles follow, but whenever we cultivate and we domesticate plants and stuff, now we need schemes to understanding. And once again, that's the moon and the cholik can be used for that, because everything is affected also by the moon, specifically the liquids or everything that is liquid, including the blood, for example. There's a lesson from the cholik and the blood. But well, that's what Shrebachmak, Agabal.
Akabal. Yeah, not just the man, but Akabal is there to complain about everything that we are doing not perfectly. About that.
It can complain. We
Yeah.
have had
So
for example, in some schools, the teachers told you to germinate a seed, a bean, and you are over there with cotton and water and blah blah blah, and you're waiting, and maybe it's not the proper thing that you did. Maybe it needs more light, or it needs more, let's say, an atmosphere, a more hot atmosphere. So, there are seeds that germinate very easy, but for example, saguaro seeds, saguaro is a cacti. Oh my gosh, those are very difficult to germinate. They need a specific, very clear way of feeding them. That's what Shaqib Arabal. What the seed can complain. Your seeds can complain, but also demand. Think
yeah,
about what they, and
yeah,
if
and
your
after, yeah, go on.
and
I think there is a small delay. Yeah, but continue on top.
if your seeds are ideas, what do they are asking you? Think about that. They demand time. It's not like, okay, I would like the you like I will want to help you, and the other says, come and help me. No, I just want to help you. I'm just watching you from distance. Everything will have a demand, and that is the lesson of this part. Then is Belechet Kat, Kat Katik, burning to ashes. Is the power of the fire when the fire already is not fueled. Any fire that is fuel grows bigger, but still demands. Once again, demands. Cat is the other side. When you is the other way. When you do clear, when you do not fuel anymore something, as the gasoline has I have an empty tank or whatever, an empty wallet. Cat is burning to ashes, is the fire that burns everything to ashes. In the process, there's a transformation that is giving energy, force, strength, light, heat, and everything associated with the fire. But in this case, Beleheb Cat is talking precisely about the efforts and the strong ways of acting for that you will want until you accomplish. Is the process. And look, it's Nawal 9 that is told to be cold. How nine the waters of the underground, but still it applies as the private effort to do the job. And see, these five Hunahpu can be so strong, but Belehet is speaking that, well, that is not going to be done by its own. You have to burn yourself to ashes to acquire, to get it, or to fight for that. That's Belehet.
Yeah, it's Scott that's gonna be, getting everyone tired in the Trecena. They can bring the exhaustion of the thousand tasks that you need to do to achieve stuff. Especially after the demands of Acabal, it's cat that needs to burn itself out in order to get that.
Yeah, and as a reminder for everybody that is listening, this is only a way to read the Trecena. This is not even the standard. This is just a way. There are so many more other ways to read Trecenas in another different ways of action. But La Hucan, La Hucan in this case is like whoa, because can will always be hypercharged energy, strong, intertwining. But now Hauten is talking about focusing, positioning, like for example, a date, focusing like with a camera, pointing out the fingers. And la Hujcan, in this case, during this trecena, is something that you have to understand about your position in any given society, even in your family. La Hujcan is going to be understood in this trecena as what is the evaluation due to you. This is the Nahual that is speaking about the atmosphere in which you develop something. Sometimes you have good ideas. Sometimes you have the machine to do the proper, the proper injection of water to your seeds or your fields in artificial irrigation, let's say. La Hucan is speaking about now the others, how they point at you. Some people fail in here. Some people will have and hold amazing ideas, but they fall onto the pressure of the outside, the society, the group, your family. Sometimes you escape from your family, you jump out of the window and you do whatever you want. Later on, you return and you have to be scolded, but it's okay. You are fighting for what you do. You belong to an organization and the evil, mean boss does not accept your ideas because in reality he's envy of what you do or whatever. In any situation, there are ways in which this is the key critical point of the trecena caused by the social or the external pressure. You can be cut off. They can intervene in your stuff. How many times a person has a good idea, a good seed to develop with the proper injection of strength, with the proper knowing the demand of the proper idea, but then they fall because the boss wants something different, because the boss has a better idea, because the family is saying, "Oh, don't be a painter. Don't be a philosopher. Don't be a reader of the Maya calendar. What are you going to earn from that? Don't or whatever." But still, La Jucan in this case is going to put you in the focusing point. Either you collapse, either you continue. And then Hula Hukame can explain precisely that. If you fall, if you fall, you can be you can come in, you can be suffocating your own heart. You can dilute everything. It is already rotten. I'm finalizing the Trecena, by the way. And Kabla Huke is going to explain that you will need additional strength or additional help. And either the seed is rotten or the seed is beginning to germinate. But let's go back. If by la Hukan the social pressure is too much to you, you can break. You can change or whatever you planified ends differently. As this history of the founder of McDonald's, for example, how his idea was different from what was developed later on. Maybe the CEO of McDonald's these days will be saying is the best. Well, the best for capitalism, but the original idea was different. La Hukan will explain the development of an idea, and either you collapse or you get it. If you collapse, La Hukami is waiting for you, the suffocation of the heart. Kab La Huker is going to tell you, well, maybe you need additional help, but maybe not. And Osh La Hukanil, in that case, is the rotten seed. But let's say that you succeed, the social pressure, or you escape through the window, as I said. The hula hoop kami is the helping, because kami also implies being helped. And hula hoop kami is that there's going to be feedings from different places. You are going to be spread. Because 11, now how 11, how hula hoop also means spreading. Then you are going to be spread to germinate. Kabla hooker also can mean an additional string that comes as that, additional. Someone was enchanted by your idea and will say, I will help you. I can lend you some money. Use my card on the weekends, whatever. Anosh Lahukanil, then it means finally it is germinated. Can you see? It's a full process then for to answer that beautiful question of my friend. No, 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 there's no moralities or ethics or philosophical direction being given by a prophet or by a sacred book. No, the implication of what nature does, the way in which the natural ways of the following the Mayan calendar, Cholik, Masewalqih, or Cholqih, those already is giving you the lesson to interact. And in this moment, I forced a little bit the final readings, but for you to understand that the Trecena also has different readings. Either you collapse in La Hucan, either you continue. Either the social pressure breaks you out, either you got help. Hula Hukame, either you break to tears or to suffocation in the heart, or you get helped. Kabla Huker, you can get additional strength for both, either to recover, either to continue. Al finally is the seed in germination, or everything that you prepare and metaphorically your seeds to be given. And this is the Trecena.
Great. Hmm.
In
That's
a reading.
great. Yeah. That was great, this analysis. And let me just go to the questions here. Evelyn just wrote, am I the Trecena or am I the day of birth?
Am I the Trecena or I am my day of birth? Both. Both. First of all, in Maya ways, we use the term Kamal Be or the guide, the one that guides or the one that rules over the destiny. Then the Trecena is a part of your chabot, your corporation, your associated nawals that are nawals. But you have a Kamal Be, a guide. Which is the Kamal Be? Your nawal. Your nawal is the ruler over all the other elements that rules in your life. For example, I do belong to the Oshla Huhakapal, Ahaw Oshla Ahaw Akapal Trecena, and my Kamalde is one of the nawals of that Trecena. Trecena is also your Trecena, but they follow. In a sense, the answer is both. You are your day and your Trecena, but your day is the Kamal Be of all the other elements.
Yeah, it's important to remind everyone because we cannot isolate anything in the Maya calendar. Everything belongs to a system. So you have your Kamalbe, your now of birth. So it's already like a head of that belongs to a bigger system. So you are already part of this bigger system you were born with. And if you
Perfect.
all have any more questions, and by the way, if you wanna are interested, I have in my playlist, I have a playlist called Fundamentals, where I go to these very small details to start entering to the Maya calendar. These small observations that they make like the entire difference when you are approaching the Maya calendar. because nobody talks about that, like this very like basic foundations that we need to know, like what to observe, like how to start like seeing some stuff, because some people just want to get people hooked about talking about personal traits and everything. But whenever we are talking about like the our life, I think we need to understand the system, because that's what the Maya calendar is about. So I
Hmm.
suggest you to just play the playlist. And also, as you often heard
Like,
Tata Fabian
of
mentioning
course.
that about masculine and feminine owls, in one of these playlists, I can identify which is masculine, which is feminine, so you can start getting familiar.
Mm.
Any more questions, anyone? Oh, here another one. What can one do when the hour of birth arrives?
Well, that has a lot of answers, but the first is, let's say, in this case, an standard way. Your Nahual is approaching. Uh, in the in if you know what your chopoch is, the structure, and your trecena, you can also begin not only with your Nahual, but with your tiki shik, that is the first element in a chopoch, that is the upper part. By the way, though, this idea of the Mayan cross is not real also. The complete chopoch is more complex, but these crazy man barrios systematize the thing in a very in a Mayan cross, another medieval concept that is not really. The chopoch is more complex. Let me tell you. But approaching your Nahual, there's also the Tikishik, that is your foundation, your inception Nahual, and then your Nahual, and then the conception. That are what we do is to do a ceremony to honor your own self, to honor the energy, the consciousness, the spirit that is in reality leading yourself. You are an organical, let's say, container and a producer of consciousness, and you interact, and you have a private and a social life. We can define a lot of stuff. What we do in arriving the Nahual, or the inception or the conception, is that you have to honor them. Usually you pay a ceremony, is a given uh, fire active ceremony, but it's not only necessarily like that. You can also prepare something else. You have to make it special, and you have to feed your own energy. It can be a ceremony, it can be something else, that a dance, music, it can be deep, or everything. For a practitioner of the Maya calendar, you usually practice a ceremony in which you use water and fire, and mostly the burning of barks and incense and stuff, an offering. Is not like to please gods or to please energies. No, it's boosting your own self, it's honoring your own self, your own will, even to proceed in life. It's a recognition, it's a mirror to see you in front of everything.
Oh, great. And as Tato mentioned, the Chobor, also in my calculator, whether you go to my website or Tat Apab'yan website, the link's in the description. In there, you can see in the graphics, if fire and water, graphics over there. That's what we are talking about. Like it's the combination of 9 owls, so in 3 different rows. So if you're interested to see like what Tata Fabian was talking about, what is still called also Mayan Cross, so you can see like especially like when I made the graphics, I tried to express exactly this essence when Tata talks about the Tiki Chic and Tio like the inception and conception now, instead of what we see a lot as past and future, applying like the linear thinking, you know. So in my website, you can visualize that to start getting familiar with the system.
Yeah,
And
I recommend you highly that um, that web page and that calculator. It includes all the information. Yes, I know it's like reading ancient Chinese, but That's why we're here to translate and to give you clues to go through and to enter deep into this magnificent knowledge.
Yeah, it's so wonderful. Lucas, this analysis is next level. Thanks, guys. Well, I'm glad we're enjoying, Lucas, because on today we have like the ajq'ij in person here, just guiding the TRECENA analysis. That's why I remain quiet over here, because it's not always that we have here the real expert. I'm just the T Rochelle. I'm just the proud apprentice. So, everyone, if you have more questions before we finalize the live, because we already got almost 2 hours in here,
Yeah.
because it's
But
always
if
so
there are
interesting. Yeah.
more, maybe you can write later and maybe we can elaborate based on questions.
Yeah. But I think for today, like we already covered a lot, because as Tat Apab'yan said, like there are thousands of possibilities that we can do with the TRECENA. Like every time, like I look at me, oh, but I forgot to mention that, but I forgot to mention like thousands of things, maybe years of explanations about certain things, because we can put everything into this matrix of the Maya calendar to analyze everything. So, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach to me or reach straight to Tat Apab'yan Tew. Also, if you'd like to follow Tat Apab'yan on Instagram, his username is also in the description. So make sure you go to follow him. And and that's it. So if you don't have any more questions, we can close here the live.
There's so much.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. We can cover at least 10 years.
Yeah, it's true.
Because
But in the
then the
same,
choice can be applied to medicine. For example, there's a way of very well known the ways of the Chinese acupuncture. In Maya ways, there's the puncture system to understand the body and to produce healings, the ajq'ij, the chayeros in Spanish. And there's a knowledge that also uses the cholik, the moon, the cholq'ij, and the trecenas and the meanings of the nahuals by organs. For example, some organs are Imosh, some organs are Anil, some organs are Ishbalam. And then you can begin to make connections. That is one. Astronomy is another. Esoterical stuff is another. Consciousness is another. Agricultural is another. The analysis of a life. A person has an accident and is bleeding in the hand. You can analyze through the trecena or the presence of the person or the place in which there's an injury. Why are you bleeding? Why are you ill? The applications are music and dance. The applications are vast and profound.
true. So true. Yeah. Edmond. Thanks, guys. This was awesome to watch. Thanks, Papabian. This was a class. Yeah, this was literally a class. So, okay, everyone. I think if you don't have more questions, if you do, just feel free to reach out to Papabian to ask directly to him if you want to. And also, thank you so much for staying here with us and for everyone who's arriving to watch later. Also, feel free to reach us or to leave in the comments if you have any questions about the TRECENA or anything related to the Maya calendar. Tat, Tamo, Nimalah, Kinkamawa. Oh, just 1 second. Mr. Apabian, do you have any other information about the moon calendar? Where should I start studying? I'm using the hub and it's working on my own with no guidance.
No, there's no source. I'm a whistleblower. I'm speaking about from the inside of the culture, and I think, Eduardo, I don't know. I think I am the only one that has been speaking about the Chol'ic. I have a cousin in Guatemala that he works for the forestal ministry of agricultural and stuff, and he has produced some schemes for the understanding of when to cut a tree. That is also the same as when to prune herbs and the hair and some little stuff, but he's really into agricultural stuff. My knowledge of the cholik began with the process of menstruation, retal ik, the sign of the moon, and the cycles of energy in the woman, because I'm devoted to that. But it has a lot of applications. But as far I don't want to just play my horn, but I haven't read. In this case, I have been the one that is opening this specific.
Yeah, because I would like to only to elaborate a little bit more because it's really really hard like for us here in the Western like to find information about that because it's like it's more like the in university to study every single segment of the Maya calendar. Like it's is everything very complex, and even like whenever we approach some anthropological books, like everything is very very like subtle, like how they approach things. Even like with the most amazing works, like it's really kind of hard to dive like really deep into that. So I think that the only way to really start learning about like is about entering into the culture. Like there is no other way to start understanding how everything comes together. Because on the internet, like everything you can like they can get you hooked on is about like how talking about personality traits because is what people are looking for, like the mainstream is looking for. But to dive into the studies like is a real effort. Like I have been studying with Tat Apab'yan Tew like for like since the beginning for 6 years right now. Yeah, since the beginning before like the university, and it's still counting and it's still go on. Like whenever I think, oh, I think I know about the calendar, like Todd proves me wrong. He shows me like, oh, I'm just an amateur because I don't know anything. All in my calendar, okay, what am I doing? It's always this feeling, and I'm having like, and I'm being trained with a proper ajq'ij, and so it's everything like it's so complex. Like it's not something like you can just go over there. Like everything, it's really hard to explain that. But my suggestion for you, if you really would like to learn that, dive into the culture. I think there is no other way. If you want to learn how to swim, you need to enter into the water. And
Yeah,
here now you already met there.
the cholik is more like let's say a property of the midwives that and the agricul and the peasants. For some is more intuitive, but for the midwives has to be very sophisticated, very sophisticated. That's what I got the knowledge. But when I began to talk, I was like, because knowing the phases of the moon and the properties and using the calendar can help you, for example, to help in to heal a lot of things in the body and also in the mind. But mm, not that I know, maybe not that I know. There's archaeological, but and also there's the Venus one, the one that counts every 20 days. But most of that literature is precisely more than given to astronomics and mathematics of the calendar, but more like for archaeologists. I don't know how much they I don't know how much they will consider this to be applied, but for us it's an everyday exercise.
Just right here. Sid Meier wrote, I leaned up on my wall 4 tomes of Hab and 7 TRECENAs for my planning. Thank you. Thanks for everything. I will. Thank you
Okay,
for your
perfect.
question, Sid Meier. Perfect. And I hope everything just gave you some nice insights. Of course, soon I will ask Tata Fabian to join again to another live. maybe just to, if you have questions, you can make like a live only to dive deep into questions you may have. You can come back in here.
Yeah,
And
I'm open.
yeah, all you guys gotta do is just leave there in the comments everything, because I try to make turn this channel like everything that can shine a light for all of you who would like to learn. That's why I made this channel with Tat Apab'yan Tew, so I can shine some light in this that is really really hard to enter. So that's why I always like to be here. Like I don't want to be another one that's like another Western that comes here that, oh, I talk about the Americana. I like to bring here the one who teaches me, like the one who provide me all this information so we can learn directly from the source. So and so if you don't have any more questions, I think we can finalize the live. I appreciate everyone here who sent the questions and everyone who stayed here with us following the analysis. I wishing you all a great TRECENA ahead. And Tat, Kamuni Malach Kinkamawa.
My pleasure, Mahkabir. My pleasure. I will see you if you will want to follow us. Follow Eduardo, follow me, follow both, or follow the transmissions. I'm open to speak, to say, and to teach. As the other person says, it's a class. Well, yes, it was a class. Okay. Then, take care of yourselves. See you
Take care.
and see you, Eduardo.
See you. Bye bye. See you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Tat.